Okay, call to order the annual organizational meeting of the Caribou Planning Board. We have on the agenda of this portion, election of officers for 2016. Anybody interested in being the chairman or nominating someone to be the chairman?
I would like to nominate Mr. Sear to continue as chairman.
Second that.
I'll accept the nomination. All those in favor? Any opposed? Let the record show that I abstained for perceived conflict of interest. Now we're on to vice chairman, who, our current vice chairman, is absent tonight.
Could we nominate him again?
I would.
Can we nominate him again and
Yes.
just inform him next month?
Well, he may be late, he said.
Okay.
He's coming, but he's late. We can let him know after. So I'll move that Matt Hunter continue on as vice chair.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous of those present. Secretary.
I move we keep our current secretary with Mr. White. Second.
Moved and seconded. You accept?
Yes, sir.
All in favor? Okay. Meeting dates and times. We've been meeting the first Wednesday of every month at 5:30 p.m. That works for me. I don't know. Is
Moved by me.
That's no reason to change it.
okay?
I move we set that meeting date and time.
Second it.
Moved and seconded that meeting dates and times remain as they are, 5:30 p.m., first Wednesday of every month. All in favor? Unanimous?
Move adjourned.
Second.
Okay, moved it and seconded that we adjourn the annual organizational meeting. All in favor? Unanimous. Now, moving on to our regular meeting. First item, minutes of the December 2, 2015 meeting.
Call to order, please. To call it to order.
Call it to order?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to
Call, make it lean.
Meeting is called to order. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
You're welcome.
First item is the minutes of the December 2, 2015 meeting. I asked Denise to add a sentence to what was originally sent out, mentioning that Dr. Ortiz spoke at the hearing last meeting, which he did, and she added that. And I believe that only our secretary and I got a copy of that amended. Or did you send it to everybody? I don't think so. I think it just went to...
It's in the printed copies here.
It's in the one... Okay, so there has been a change to what was originally sent out, just stating that Dr. Ortiz spoke on behalf of his apartment change request. Anybody care to move to accept the minutes? I'll move that.
Second it.
Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor? Unanimous? New business. Any new business to come before this body?
Yes. I think we should officially welcome Jim Campbell.
Excuse me. Stop. Is it Campbell?
I thought it was. Could be right, could be wrong.
Chandler. Chandler.
I'll start with C.
Thank you for my being remiss. City of Caribou welcomes Jim Chandler as the new Assistant City Manager.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Welcome. Our camera angle doesn't show him.
It's a bad TV, it shows them on...
Oh, it shows, okay, larger than 11-inch TVs.
Small screen television.
Okay. Any other new business?
No problem.
Any other new business?
See you right next time.
Okay. Moving on to old business. Chapter 13, rewrite. So we begin reviewing Chapter 13 tonight, and we'll continue to do so for several nights, several monthly meetings. Before we get too far, seeing as this is an ongoing work, I'm wondering if we should set some kind of target date, target time to end the meeting, like 7 PM or something, or do you want to go later than that? Obviously, we're not going to stop in the middle of a conversation, but, I mean, if we wanted to, we could be here till 9 o'clock tonight. And I don't want to. I don't know what people think about 7, 7:30. I'm just wondering about some type of
Well,
self-imposed cutoff.
since we're getting into it at just after 5:30, I think 7 is more than reasonable. I think it's,
See where we're at 7 o'clock and reassess at that time?
I think if you allot an hour to a discussion like this, it goes much longer than that, it's going to start to be non-productive.
I agree.
I have a question on it as well while we're going through this whole general requirements part. Is part of what we should be doing making this document more user-friendly at the same time? Because I've noticed that some of this stuff takes accidental findings from other cities as to as to what it means. For instance, on the, well, we're not at it yet, but I want an example of it anyways, the buffers and screening. I'm like, what is this about? Because it just says what you need for land, but, and I took these, can you look at them? And found these from Munson. Munson explained to me what the buffers were and when they would be in use. I mean, it's a little more lengthy word-wise, but at least if someone's considering doing a project and they go to Caribou first before they even visit the MSRAs and the fire protection and all the rest of it, they'll at least have an idea of whether or not they need the items. Because it says general, and to me, that could mean anything. My house, my,
Right.
corner store.
I think it's a good suggestion, definitely. That's part of the goal of the whole process, is to make everything a little bit more user-friendly. Yeah, I think it's a good suggestion, any place where we can make it better for the community as a whole.
I would, thank you, and I think that's excellent, and I thank you for the research. I'd like to add, in addition to user-friendliness, and this is my own personal, and I'd welcome to hear others, that our goal in looking at these is to relax the requirements in order to encourage more economic activity in the city of Caribou.
Right, and not to be redundant as to what Maine already, like if Maine already has something that's an ordinance towards something, let's just write in there, according to, as long as you fit under MSRA, weird symbols, 30, chapter, whatever, then,
Yeah.
and then from there, if we have anything that we need to add to it, then we,
The only problem with making a reference like that, though, is that now they got to go find that MSRA somewheres, and so sometimes...
right, but
it's-
if we at least tell them that that thing exists, we don't even do that in here right now. We don't even have, we say meet something to do with Maine, but we don't really have any references to where you even go. Like when that guy came in with the RV thing, and he seemed completely oblivious to the state-required buffers.
Yeah, okay. Back to my presumption or goal of making them less stringent to encourage economic activity. Is that kind of a common goal?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good. Okay, so we'll start on, page 5, but, no, hold on. Page 5.
Page 8 of the ordinance.
Yes, page 8. Under item 1, the city manager has suggested a couple of changes, and I personally agree with both of the suggested changes. Any discussion on that particular area? We're going to do this by consensus? as we-
We're striking those right out of there? I mean, is that what?
Well, let's discuss that.
I'm not sure I understand the difference between private space and storage space. Between, in other words, what's the difference between B and E?
Yeah, what is a private space, guys? I don't even know what that is. Like, is that your
Well,
room?
one of the things that I wondered about is private space actually storage space? Austin presumed it was storage, but when when you say 500 square feet minimum per dwelling unit adjacent to each unit, I mean, private space, that could be a place to park your car, that could be, it doesn't necessarily have to be a structure.
If that's the case, we should clear it up so there's no confusion as to what actually is a private space.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's adjacent to each unit. Does that mean inside or outside?
Well, no, adjacent is alongside, it wouldn't be inside.
But you've got apartment units that are in the middle of a structure that don't have any adjacent outside space.
Right. I mean, a good example would be what we dealt with last month.
Right.
Now, okay,
It's just, it's hard to deal with this because we don't know the original intent.
well, in that case, it probably, as Austin presumed, maybe his presumption is correct, that they are talking about storage space, but then, I don't see why we need to require that an apartment have 500 feet of storage space, that every apartment have 500 feet of storage space. If people need, some people have more stuff than others. There are storage facilities around town that you can rent, various sizes.
This could be a studio apartment, in which case under your bed is your 500 feet, because you're not going to get it.
So,
But
If it's
To go back space, this is a large space.
that's 2 cars.
But why are, I mean, to go back to what Austin's wrote here, why are we requiring it? Why does this even have to be in here?
Well, I'm in favor of deleting B entirely.
Yeah.
Other thoughts?
No, I am too. I mean, I
Okay.
don't think why,
Anybody opposed to deleting B?
No?
Okay, we're going to delete B.
So that would move C to B.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that'll get fixed in the end.
Yeah, that'll. Now, let's look at E. And again, we're talking private storage or
Oh.
common storage.
Can we go to C first? I
Oh.
have a question on that.
Okay, go ahead.
That one says that we require a parking space off-street, separate from the customer parking lot. Well, what if I have a pretty good-sized parking lot, and it's my business, and I want to just let them park in that lot? Is that against the law somewhere? I mean, does it have to be off-street?
When
If
you
it's an
said-
accessory apartment?
Yeah, but if you have a parking lot, then I think the reference here is city-owned parking as opposed to privately owned parking. If it's your parking lot, then you have parking.
Well,
Well, it
but,
doesn't say that.
find that.
but you're required to have X amount of parking spots per X amount of square footage for your retail space, not including any rental spaces or residences above.
Separate from is the confusing phrase. It probably should read in addition to, because somewhere else in the ordinance, we have a statement about how many parking spaces have to be provided for the business.
Right, it's based on X amount of square footage, based on X amount of spots.
So this is,
For every 150 square feet, total square
okay.
footage.
So this is saying the tenants, if there are some upstairs, need their own parking that doesn't interfere with the commercial parking.
And it also says in the ordinance that you cannot use other space that's already computed for other issues to
Right.
accommodate that need for the parking for the apartment, so to speak, okay? I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But you've already got that space allocated to meet one requirement in the code, now you can't take that and double up on it, basically.
So in addition to might be a better way to.
In addition to required customer parking,
Yeah.
Well, that's in, further on in the, when you get to parking anyway, it says in addition to. So
Right.
it says you cannot,
But I suppose for
I
certain
agree,
meeting,
maybe putting it up front too, that's not redundant.
Yeah, I mean, we need to clarify it. I
yeah,
mean,
so that way it's right there in the front when they start looking at it versus when they get back and say, nobody said anything about parking.
Right. Yep, no, that's a good change.
I don't think it's wrong to have it in both places.
So we're taking out separate and putting in addition to.
Right.
Does that address your,
Yes.
okay. Any other comments on A, C, D before we get to E? Okay, let's get to E. Again, why are we dictating storage space when, you know, individual storage needs are just that, individual. Person can have a lot of stuff or very little stuff. And if you have a lot of stuff and you're looking at a tiny apartment, then logically you should figure out your stuff isn't going to fit. And so,
Yeah, that's it.
you know, I mean, if you need additional space, go see an off-site storage rental place.
yeah. In large cities, or not even large cities, in cities that have lots and lots and lots of rental space, having storage space is a marketing issue. If you've got it, then you can rent your apartment more easily. But if you don't have it, well, people are going to still rent. I could be dead wrong, but I've got a funny feeling that some of these provisions came about a long time ago when a lot of the renting was going out to service people.
Service as in military,
As an Air Force.
Law and Air Force Base.
Who had to haul all their stuff around and had to have a place to put it when they got reassigned. And it wouldn't fit in the apartment.
Well, yeah. Well, the other thing too, well, this language could have come from, you know, this ordinance could have been copied from a larger city,
Yeah.
okay? And that's where the language may have come from. It may have been written before RPACs built storage and, you know, other people built storage, that there were no storage units available, which there are now.
Well, I know that, like, Rose Acres has storage compartments in the basement of their buildings for each one of their tenants. I know that my mother rents from another facility here that has it's like a closet, basically, that they all have a key to. It's a locked closet, and it's all caged in. Each one of them have their own. So I would think a commercial place that's renting out apartments is going to build a little...
They're going to do that.
Yeah, they're going to have that there.
Yeah, I know that when you mention Rose Acres, typically money that comes from Farmers Home Administration or HUD, their definition of apartments requires on-site storage, probably because they're accustomed to working in the big cities, and they get the same guidelines nationally. But that's why you've got it at places like Rose Acres or something like that, because of the funding source mandated it. You got a private individual that puts up an apartment building, you know, using a commercial bank, he's not going to be under any obligation to that, and I don't think we should tie his hands to it.
But this is just for apartments accessory to commercial uses.
Oh,
Right,
so
it's
we're-
not-
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
my opinion is that we listen to the manager and strike E, but
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm conflicted about it a little bit, because, again, it's a hypothetical, but what if the tenant's got a bicycle that during the winter he's got to put it someplace? Is he going to stick it in his living room? Is he going to stick it in the public hallway?
He can put it in his living room. I've seen a lot of motorcycles in living rooms. I mean, a bicycle would take less space.
Yeah, and house hunters, they keep them in the front room. Saying.
I'm sorry, I don't watch that.
People got friends that have
I'm not
some...
gonna fight the problem.
Well, what if we kept E as where it's not a certain amount of space and just had that? Because like, most of these places do have a space. Could we go on that? Or they could build a closet if they had to? I mean, where we took out the 500 feet, I don't think that's needed, but a closet for a bike or a storage
Yeah,
area.
I'm gonna be devil's advocate here, okay, and pretend that I'm the private landlord, and I read each dwelling unit you'll have access to and use some private storage space. And I thought, yeah, there's a closet in there.
Yep.
Satisfied.
But still, this is about accessory apartments to commercial uses. I don't think that we should really put too much on a person who wants to put it into an apartment, because, that's where studio apartments and stuff come from. When I say studio, I don't mean the kind that are in old factories where you've got, room for a trampoline. I mean, your basic living essentials are there, and, if someone has that much stuff to store, there's apartment buildings, there's landlords of other apartments. I mean, just because this is an accessory apartment doesn't mean it's not going to cost more than an apartment down the road to the renter.
But I do see the other side of it, that if they have a lot of stuff, then maybe that spot to rent is not a good spot for them. They could find something with more, so I think it'd be okay to,
Take it out.
yeah.
Do we have consensus on taking that out?
Yeah, because, it's trying to solve a problem we don't even know exists.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, E is struck. Any comments on F or G?
On G, can we cite where these provisions are, the city building code, property maintenance code, and life safety code?
They're part of the same document, I think.
Are they in this?
But it would be good to give a point of reference, I agree.
So that they don't have to use Control F and try and locate it in the document if it's even in there.
Right, because these are all separate codes.
Right.
Right. I think we should add those, and we should make that fluent throughout the rest of the document.
Right. Whenever we reference, we should say where it is, not just...
Well, what do you mean by where it is? It's in the building inspector's office.
Right, but she's talking about what's the title of the, well, I suppose that is the title.
That is the title.
Yeah.
I don't understand what the confusion is.
City building.
Those are three documents that are available in City Hall to anyone in the
But if somebody wants to reference those outside of City Hall, that would give them the means in order to be able to
That's
access
the question of
that.
how well our website's
I was
constructed.
going to say, do we have Google Search on our website?
Are they online? Are those documents available online?
I really don't know.
They are, but I'm not sure if they're linked, honestly, at the moment. I'd have to look.
Linking is a lot of work.
So if we provide that and they can access the website, then they can go through and find that section.
Yeah, even if we just put the website, they can just copy and paste it from any document.
All provisions of the city property life safety code shall be met. These may be obtained from the code enforcement officer's office. These are available at city office or online at
Yeah,
www.
if at all possible, I'd rather cite it, because I wouldn't want to go visit somebody until I knew what I was doing. Like, I
Okay.
wouldn't say, hey, code enforcement officer, you got time for a chat?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. You want to get your ducks in order first.
If you want your own copy, you're probably going to have to pay for it, because somebody has
That's
to...
fine, as long as you follow the legal.
Well, yeah, you go to City Hall and you say, I'd like a copy of.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know that looking at
Where
this.
did they get
And it's
this?
the
They
life
got this
safety
at City
code.
Hall, too.
No, I got this on, you can get this code stuff right there online.
Yeah.
At the city of Caribou.
My point is, if we know we can get this online, we should also know that we can get the rest of it online. It may not be linked, but I'm willing to guess it's all up there.
I'm sure it is.
But this way they know
just
which
to-
sections they're looking
Right,
for.
because just to locate some stuff when it comes to terminology in here can take up to 8 hours.
Jim has
For a
written
common
extensive
person.
notes on this topic, and I'm sure he'll put in wherever we can look to find. He's absorbed our conversation.
I think it's a good idea.
Lifetime of work to link all that stuff.
Aren't you retired? Don't you have time?
You want to see what I'm doing on a daily basis for WorldCom?
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, I
Okay.
agree. I think we should put
So we will
points
put
of reference
something
with the
there,
sections and
you know,
subsections in it.
Available at city office or www.
Yeah, wherever they can
Okay.
most easily access it, even if it's go
Well,
down
even
to
if,
City Hall and grab
when
a
you
copy.
say link,
I don't necessarily mean link, I just want
I
to say,
mean, my website's got a couple of PDFs that you can just, you know, click on and,
Yeah.
and it loads the PDF.
But then you've got to find that section.
yep.
You know, I'll use a point of reference, I
We'll
mean,
take care of the website issue.
Yeah, I think we can take care of that.
Yeah, I mean, just as long as we know which-
The documents and
Yeah,
and make
right.
it, the goal is to
Okay.
make it more user-friendly for the applicant. We can definitely make
I
it.
don't understand how
because,
this,
I mean, if you reference like motor vehicle statutes online, you need to know which section you're looking for.
Shall, don't say another word.
I had a few free days.
you can directly link this to a specific section in the codes.
No, but
All the codes apply.
No, but,
But it'll give you the reference point as to which ones are going to apply. So
well,
it's, you know,
just the fact that you've given the city building code, the life safety code, you know, back out and Google life safety code on the Caribou website and see what you get, you know.
And they all have table of contents, so you can find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to archaeological sites. Are there any questions, concerns about the archaeological sites?
Yeah, does this mean we met the charter? Where it says that the planning board was supposed to do this in 2015? If this covers,
What were we supposed to do?
says adopt or amend land use ordinances to require the planning board or other designated review authority to incorporate maps and information provided by the Maine Historic Preservation Commission into their review process. Does this ordinance cover that?
No, I don't think it's related.
I don't think it does.
I was gonna say, I thought it did.
Oh,
I think it might, but, you know, I don't know much about historical
well, what it,
preservation.
we're supposed to make reference to maps? Is that what you read?
No, you can read it if you want. It just says that's what we're going to have done in 2015, so.
Guess what, we didn't. What's that, what document is that?
That's the,
Yeah, comprehensive plan.
it's the comprehensive plan.
The new one?
Yep.
Yeah.
The new one, which was only adopted in late 2015, has target dates of 2015? Come on, that doesn't sound right.
I thought we
It was
adopted that
adopted
in
in
14.
14.
We adopted that in 14, yeah.
Been there long.
Incorporate maps and information provided by the Maine Historic Preservation Commission.
yeah,
Couple
days.
Incorporate maps and information.
Into what? That's what I don't understand.
The part that catches me right here is adopt or amend land use ordinances. This is our land use ordinance. Does it fit what we should be doing here?
To require the planning board
We can give the maps to the code enforcement.
to incorporate maps
Sections.
and information provided by the Maine Historical Preservation Commission. We could throw in a sentence that says, see Maine Historic Preservation Commission maps. Does that do it?
I don't know.
Well, we want, I'm not, I kind of go back and say, okay, why did we even put
Why
that?
did we even say we were going to do that?
You're right, I know.
Because the state required us to, would be my guess.
Okay. Well,
We'll check out the,
can we,
I think this does, but we'll check with the Maine Historic Preservation, make sure there's no special maps, and we can make sure that we add anything.
Okay, because then we can check that off. See, we could say we did that. Even if it was 2016.
Those are all just target dates, it doesn't, they're not steadfast, you don't have to pay.
Right.
I thought.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't thinking of the date as much as I was, here's
What page number
archaeological
is that?
sites.
Make up?
1?
page 1. In the beginning.
That's why it was so easy to find.
Okay, is that it for the archaeological sites? Okay, moving on to 3, basement drainage. I have a word change. At the end of the first line, or storm, second line, sewers. I would like to take out the word sewers and put in drains, because my understanding is that any floor drains, whether they be in your basement, your garage, etc., are not to be in your sewer. They are to be piped separately. And by use of the word sewer, you're inviting somebody to put it in the sewer instead of using the word drain, storm drains. And if you talk to Al Hitchcock, he'll tell you that every time it rains in Caribou, the amount of water that enters the sewage plant is double or triple any day that it doesn't rain, which tells you there's a lot of floor drains and rain gutters feeding into the sewer, which...
There's a lot of old pipes.
Which in the old days used to feed into the river, and now they go to the sewage plant.
That applies to new construction.
Right. Storm sewer is a fairly common term.
Storm sewer as opposed to storm drain.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interchangeable. It's a semantic thing. We can change it to drain if we want to, but it's a fairly...
We put
Storm
drain.
sewer is separate from sanitary sewer, so...
Now, is this basement drainage in regards to every new construction, like house,
No, this is,
commercial,
well, yeah, it's in the requirements.
Yeah, it's general.
it's anything? Okay.
And I've seen houses that were built, I want to say in the early 90s, that connect their floor drains to the sewer.
To sanitary?
Yes.
It's back in the time when no one told them that they couldn't.
Oh, it was very well known, especially since the owner of the house was a plumber. He built it. Anyway.
I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, there was a survey that was distributed by the Utilities Commission, looking at just exactly what you honestly could report.
Yeah.
And of that, I think we're starting to see a slight increase in pricing based on separating those that have the storm or drainage in their cellars that go into the sewer system and not the storm drain system.
Well, if you're looking at new construction today, in 2001, they added the requirement for radon mitigation.
Right.
And your internal and external drain tile on either side of your foundation had to have a vent pipe coming up inside your basement to hook an exhaust fan to blow outside in the event that your home was deemed to have radon gas.
Right.
And so, obviously, your drain system around your house isn't in your sewer. So, I mean, that's been, when I say early 90s, I know that in early 90s, that was the case. I mean, floor drains were not to go in your sewer.
That's the case today.
Yes, that's been the case for 20 years.
Oh, yeah, I know.
But, okay, well, a storm sewer is a...
But the storm sewers, if they are required to be installed. So what are we quibbling about?
Good point. Okay. Retract my request. 1 foot below the level of the basement floor.
That's an or.
Yeah, well, that's right, and that has to do if there's a water table.
Right, like I've got a hole in the corner of my basement that in the middle of the springtime does not fill up with water, so I guess I meet this requirement. Right.
Okay, number 4, any other thing on number 3? Okay, number 4, bed and breakfast. My only comment on that was each rental room shall have not less than 10 by 12 feet horizontal dimensions, 120 square feet, and then further on page 14, on hotels, we're looking for a minimum of 12 by 15, which means bedrooms in a hotel are to be larger than bedrooms in a bed and breakfast. And I thought, all right, what's with the inconsistency here? So page 14, hotels requires 12 by 15, whereas this one requires 10 by 12.
And I had some questions on the room size too, like where did that measurement come from? Somebody just threw a dart at something? I have no idea why that says that. And as we go further through all these other things that are transient accommodations, it might be better if we just collectively have them in order, transient accommodations, and really look at these things that we have written down here, because my God, what a list. I mean, is this the biggest section there is for an RV park? I don't know. I'm pretty sure the state of Maine has some pretty stringent regulations in regards to these, and the amount we're adding to it, sheesh, it's crazy. But some other communities in Maine do it by transient accommodations, and trust me, they don't have this many pages. And that way we could fit cabins into, all under the same category.
I'm all for the KISS principle.
Me too.
I don't know why that's stuck right in there anyway. It's alphabetical, that's why.
Are you talking about,
Bed and breakfast.
oh,
Comes after basement drainage because E follows A.
Yeah, everything's
oh, things are in alphabet. Good observation. Campgrounds are next. Yeah, okay. So things are,
Yeah, we could lump them all together under one number and then
Yeah.
farm them out underneath.
Maybe we could like research this and
well, I
come
would
back
think,
to it.
I would think the bed and breakfast
instead of
could be
trying to-
alongside the
I don't have the
hotels.
internet with me.
I mean, they, you know, and for that reason, for that matter, I should say, I think, can the two be incorporated one into the other, bed and breakfast and hotels, motels?
I think they're two different things, though, because most bed and breakfast, it's like an old house, so most of the rooms would be
One
smaller.
common bathroom for,
Correct.
For two
And the
guests.
purpose is a little different, where you go, you stay, you eat breakfast, you do your thing, you come back, you sleep.
Yep.
So I think a 10 by 12
That
is,
number might have very well come from the average bedroom size is.
yeah.
Right.
10 by 12.
There are minimum standards for room sizes for certain applications too.
Correct.
So it's not just somebody just threw it out there, so you'll know.
Well,
But if someone else is telling them already, you have to do this, then there's another thing where you reference,
I understand that.
yeah.
and so, while we're talking room sizes, I mean, if we want to leave the 10 by 12 in there, that's fine. The only thing I questioned was, when we get to the hotels, are we going to give them the same 10 by 12, or leave the existing?
I think the requirements are different.
Because it's a
Hotels
hotel.
are different.
And chances are, if we get a hotel here, it's not going to be somebody changing up current structure to a hotel, it'd be a new hotel, I would hope. So I think that's...
So you think that it's logical or legitimate that there's two different sizes?
Correct.
Okay.
I agree that we should consolidate all of
The
those.
ordinance ought to...
And then you're separate.
Well, if the ordinance is doing it alphabetically,
It should be by subject matter.
it should be, it should start
Then
with...
its subject matter should be together.
Section, yeah.
By subject.
So maybe we should spend the next 50 minutes focusing on which order it should be in, and then address...
Well, I think,
Then address them on a...
I don't think we
on a
need to
larger
do that.
scope.
I think that Jim is perfectly capable of lumping things by subject matter.
I can take a stab at that. I had actually asked Austin the question earlier, because I just took a quick, very cursory review of this, and my actual concern, having stayed in bed and breakfasts, was only requiring one bathroom for any number of guest rooms, which could have couples, which would mean you'd have more than a couple of people using a common restroom in the hall. You could have 4 rooms and 4 couples, 8 people, one restroom. I think that jumped out at me.
What you'll find is that those B&Bs don't get much traffic.
It could be supply and demand, absolutely, and a marketing thing.
I remember
So,
one that didn't have a private bathroom, but they do exist.
I mean, you've got hostels, there's a lot of types of transient accommodation
Yeah.
that we could address, and was a B&B equal to an inn? That was a question I had, because you have motels, hotels, and inns. So I'd be happy to do some research on that and try to aggregate all that together.
It'd be nice to have it on one place.
Provide it with
Maybe simplify, yeah.
some background and
Yeah, and as we have these discussions, you're part of us. Feel free to jump in.
Okay.
And offer your comments, because we by all means don't know everything.
Happy to contribute, so.
Okay, so, bed and breakfast, we all set with the bed and breakfast? Okay, 5, buffers and screening. And Austin's comment seems like a large strip of land for buffering.
This is what that printout was that I gave you guys in regards
Oh,
to.
the buffers.
Because I had no idea what they want, what required a buffer and what didn't. And, you know, the small children thing was kind of funny. There are people that are smaller than children, so.
Now, what exactly, or where, because the 15 feet in width is one thing, but the 6 feet in height, what are we talking buffers for? We're not talking between houses.
No, they're visual.
What are we talking?
Right, so,
Oh, any place that further reference says there shall be a buffer.
right.
Okay, so if you have a home occupation or something, whatever, you may be required to put in a buffer, and this basically then is the definition of a buffer.
So page 794 in the ordinance, we have a full ordinance, talks about the buffers. Just briefly, wherever commercial, industrial, or other non-residential development is proposed adjacent to or across the street from a residential or agricultural use is where the buffer's required. So would it be essentially to block the view? Highway tire is a good example. Abuts the backyards of residential areas abut highway tire. They've got some shrubs and bushes.
Well, the
there.
Caribou Scrap Metal Yard has residences across the street,
Yeah, and they've got
I believe,
the
you know.
fence and thing.
Okay.
But Section 5 is not a definition. Because this is,
by 13.
and as required by Section 13705, which is this. In other words, this is telling you, giving you all the different reasons you might want to have a buffer. You've got exposed machinery, you've got sand and gravel mining, you've got a junkyard, you've got noise. That's where you want a buffer.
So what's your point? Are you saying
I'm
that,
saying that 5 is not just a definition. It's part of the requirement.
is it, well, it says as required. Okay, yeah, so you're just clarifying that it's not a definition. It's a requirement. Okay, well,
15 feet, I don't know if 15 feet's adequate or not. But
wow, you can plant a row of trees in less than 15 feet.
sure you can.
You know, especially, you put a line of Lombardy poplars, you know, they'll grow 75 feet tall in a matter of 5 years, and they're only 5 feet wide. Instant wall. I don't know.
And that might be a case where Section F comes into play, where you can allow less of a buffer area when the site conditions allow for it.
Could be put at the discretion of,
Right, and that's what Section F
Yeah, that's what Section F
says. It gives the board and the code enforcement officer discretion.
Which is good to have, because it's hard to write something that will apply to all circumstances. There needs to be some wiggle room for common sense to enter the picture.
Yeah, well, somebody is going to read 5A literally someday and is going to ask us, how are they going to build a buffer that's 15 feet wide and 6 feet high?
You put up a fence, or you...
Heck, no, the fence is only about 6 inches wide. How are you going to build a buffer that's 15 feet wide and 6 feet high?
Well, you're being a little too literal.
But that's the way it's written. That's the way it's written. That's why I'm bringing it up.
You gotta park some buses in there side by side.
Good idea.
Old ones, especially.
Right.
The buffer should be able to accommodate whatever particular nuisance may be present with the relationship of the buildings. If it's an office building, there's not going to be any noise or anything like that where a buffer would necessarily even be necessary. But if you got Highway Tire next door to you, that's rather a noisy business and dirty business. So you want to be able to not see what's going on top of not hearing. And I know Phil wouldn't want the tire place across the street from him up there. He wants it quiet up there. So sometimes when they use larger figures, what we seem to think that may be too much is not necessarily too much. It just depends on the application. I think that's where you're going with it.
Well, I think getting back to building in some discretion by the CEO, code enforcement officer.
That's covered under F.
I did-
It's reference paragraph F.
Right.
I did have a wordsmithing, to use your word, in A, 1, 2, 3, 4, on the fifth line, salvage or refuse, to protect. When I read that, I didn't think the "and" belonged there.
No, the "and" to protect is an adjunct to minimize the visual impact of. Everything else in between is examples of. So take all the examples out and say minimize the visual impact of adverse characteristics and to protect the budding residential properties from noise, light, etc.
Okay. I guess it works both ways. Okay. I wouldn't have put an "and." Moving on. Okay, so back to Austin's comment, though. Large strip of land, 15 feet. Do we want to leave it at 15?
I think we should leave it as it's written. Either that, and we'll be covered with any changes, with F after the fact.
Is that good with everybody else?
Now, you could change no less than to up to.
I would say up to.
Yeah, but then you're putting a maximum. If somebody wants to put in a 50-foot buffer, let them. You don't want to limit the maximum.
It's too wide open. I don't know how to tighten it up, but it's too wide open.
Use a discretionary
Right, I think we reference
in
F
the
in
application
that.
of what's going where.
Leave it as is and reference F.
Right. So at some point, probably after where it says 6 feet in height, unless otherwise decided upon, something right after that 6
Right,
feet in
and
height.
don't section
reference
F on it, yeah.
Right.
Or as required in section F.
Right.
Or as allowed by section F.
Right.
We don't want to use required.
Yeah. Or as allowed
Yeah.
by section F.
Yeah,
I will wordsmith that one.
I'm good with that one.
Okay. So how tall are small children?
6'2".
You mentioned they make reference to small children. You're trying to protect, let's see, where a potential safety hazard to small children exists, physical, I don't think you should limit it to small children.
No, I think we should strike small children.
Just say to the public.
Yes, because you could have a demented adult who's going to go in there and...
Are you saying children are demented?
No, I'm saying that some elderly people are demented, wandering the streets. And they can go in there and hurt themselves, So, I like your use of the word, to the public.
Cross out small children, put the general public.
Or to the
Well, I don't know if we need the word general.
Okay, to
The public,
With potential safety hazard
To a person.
to someone, to a person,
a person.
would exist.
Well, no, because there's potential safety hazard with anything to any person. At that point, somebody can say, well,
Well, the other...
your fault.
I prefer the word public because, I don't know, if If I had a dog and it went in there and got injured, is that part of the public? I mean, if you say a person, I mean, you should, if you've got hazardous locations, you should put protective barriers to keep anybody, anything from going in there to get.
So then we'll just strike two small children and
Yeah.
have, say where a potential
Yeah.
safety hazard
I
would
like that.
exist.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
And encompasses it all.
okay, so we strike out two small children and just, safety hazard. Very good, Phil.
Your meetings this morning?
Okay.
Breakfast. I see it's important, right?
It is, actually.
And so now, on F, F is pretty good as it stands. The CEO or planning board may allow a buffer area of less width when site conditions such as natural features, blah, 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 to achieve the purposes of this ordinance. We all set with F?
Yep.
Okay, campground or recreational vehicle park.
I actually still think more research needs to go into those ones.
Is-
Anything transient. I think that we have way too much going on in these.
Well, I'm not sure a campground is necessarily transient from the point of view that a lot of people go to a campground 2 miles from their house because it's alongside the lake and they want that environment, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think we're talking about people who run campgrounds, aren't we? Like, if you open up one, I mean, we're not talking about you going down to the lake and just picking a piece of
Yeah,
land.
but people go to campgrounds alongside lakes. And they leave their RVs there year-round, and they only populate them when the weather's good. You go drive down some of the roads by Eagle Lake. Yeah.
But which lake in Caribou are they camping at?
And that, if it's not transient, then it
I'm
would
just talking
become
about
a,
general application.
it would be a mobile home
Soderbergh.
park versus a,
Soderbergh Lake.
RV park.
Hasn't been built yet.
If we're not worried about having a campground in Caribou, why do we even have the ordinance?
Well, because
We've been asked about it.
yeah, we should have. Are you telling me there is not a single campground in Caribou as is?
I'm not. I think he just is.
Isn't that what his,
It's a cabin, the Caribou cabin.
Caribou cabin.
And he wanted to do RV sites.
We want to do RVs.
I think there's certainly great locations to add campgrounds to our community, you know, I mean, along the river and everything else, there's a lot of great opportunities.
There used to be one out on Route 1,
Just
where
past
the
Funland.
Frisbee Golf Road.
This golf
That
place
used to be a campground.
Yes, that's right. Yes, down behind Funland.
Uncle Noel's, maybe?
yeah, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, but it used to be was the operative phrase.
Right, but if somebody wants to, well, we've already had a request brought to us, and, you know, be optimistic. Let's hope there are more requests, and we need some guidance as to what we're going to ask of them. So, you struck out the tent and recreational vehicle parks, and is that because the title of that is changing rules relating to campgrounds?
Right.
Okay. Now, getting to A1, setbacks don't appear to be completely unreasonable, but they are more restrictive than the state, which I'm not sure I want us to be more restrictive than the state.
Well, I don't see why.
Can we go to the state?
Yeah, I think we should.
yeah, I think we should find out what the state wants first. Note that here for whoever might be thinking about getting a recreational vehicle park, and then if there's anything we need to add city-wise, then we should add that, not things that are already ordinances or laws or rules according to Maine. I don't think we need to reinvent what they did unless there's some reason.
Agreed. So then are we going to change these to the state requirement? But we don't know what the state requirement is.
Yeah, I
Yeah, we do, he says so right here.
That's right.
Or the 15 and the 25?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go with the state requirement.
The only concern that I have, and I would need to bring up Google Earth here, but with the person that had expressed interest in the past, they're kind of in a little bit of a residential area, or there's houses near there. And if you're allowing somebody to camp
What's it
within
zoned? What was it,
R3 out
R3?
there.
Yeah, but he's got a pretty good buffer, I believe, on both sides of them.
No, on the roadside though, and that was one of, I think,
Right.
the sticking points for us was the road point.
That was the state
Was the
thing.
view, what's visible from the road.
Well, when we get to that, I mean, I got some issues, I don't see what the problem is with being able to see an RV park from the road. I mean, if you can't see it, you don't know it's there.
But I think, and that's what those were
That's why they have
saying.
signs. But I think in respect to maybe the state's requirements, they're not looking at a campground in a residential area, all right? And where there are campgrounds in residential areas, and there's one right up at Madawaska Lake, as a matter of fact, that there are issues in the distances and the noise that's generated from the campgrounds into the landowners and property owners right beside them up there, just as the example. So that's why I'm saying that even though the state may be less restrictive than us, okay, if it's, let's just use the one out on Route 1 that used to be there, there was nothing around that one there. So that would be a good application of it, but where there's a residential zone and a potential for conflict, that's where you need to be looking at being more restrictive, even though you want to be pretty much in the consensus with the state. So I think as far as what the state's looking at, they're looking at maybe the possibility of a RV zone or anything like that is not what you would call right next to a residential area where there would be a conflict with activities.
Well, so do we want to take the 100 and 200 and cut those numbers in half? 50 feet from any property line and 100 feet from any residence?
I haven't done enough, I haven't gotten into it enough to see what the state requires yet to,
The state requirement is shown in red, Michelle.
15 and 25, which is
right, and
quite
it
small.
doesn't matter where it's at, like,
Right.
That's correct.
okay.
But wouldn't your neighbors, I mean, you're gonna have a public hearing, and your neighbors, the neighbors abutting this property would have say, right? I mean,
Well,
they're gonna have
in theory, they can express concern, but if you're not in violation of the ordinance, I believe it goes through. Just because they're expressing concern, I don't know,
Right.
When you change the ordinance, you send out just a general public notice. When you do something on the land abutting your property, then you send out notification to each one. That's when you'll find out that the RV zone out there that the guy came to represent is abutting landowners, and then they're gonna say, we don't want it, but there's no reason for you to deny it because you changed the rules to accommodate that person.
Well,
in other words, the neighbor's opinion isn't necessarily the deciding factor.
Right.
so maybe we need something in there about the distance.
go in.
No, taking me on a tangent, sorry. The setback distances can be determined by the planning board according to, I'm not saying the right words, but according to the particular situation.
Yeah, that's just asking for trouble.
To me, having a setback from any property line be relatively small, 15 or 25 feet, isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I think you need to have a larger setback if it's going to be near a residence. So having a setback 200 feet from any residence makes a lot of sense to me. But having it 15 feet from a property line, that, in my mind, that kind of works, helps you in every situation. Because if somebody down there on Route 1 wants to put RV sites, they can be 15 feet from the property line. There's not a house around there. But if somebody over here in a more residential type area wants to put an RV thing in, they have to be at least 200 feet from the residence.
Excellent point.
Yeah, that makes sense now.
Because your piece of land could be surrounded by woods on three sides, and there are no residences, and so why exclude 50 or 100 feet along a property line that they can't use? So I kind of like the idea of 15 feet from any property line. 200 feet from a residence, 200 feet is a good distance. I don't know, I mean, I'm saying it's a long distance, is that unnecessarily long, or?
That's 4 city lot widths.
And I think given,
City lots are
given an RV park, they are, I don't think that that would necessarily
1,000
be,
square feet, 50 by 100.
I think 200 feet would be probably enough. I mean, I don't think I want to go any smaller from the residence.
Okay, well,
And then at that point, where do we make our mark from? We're marking 200 feet from the residence itself, or 200 feet from the property line that residence sits on?
Well, see, that's where you get into a bunch of wet.
Because there's no way that you go property line.
Property line,
From the property, yeah, property line.
but that's where.
But it doesn't say that now.
yeah, actually, when I read it, I interpreted it from the residence.
Yeah, why do you, explain one half dozen the other? It's just like when you go home to simplify it, it's 200 feet from the property line.
Yeah, but, and I don't think, I prefer to go from the residence. I would too. Because, I mean, I've got,
Here's the property line, and there's the house, 1,000 feet away.
I know, that's what I'm saying, but if you simplify, you go property line. If you want to go from the residence, I'm fine with that.
well, we don't want to go from property line. We want to go to the residential structure itself.
There you go.
Is that what others?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of large house lots. You know, particularly if you're going to get into the R3s, because you're not going to let an RV park, and probably not into an R1. And so if you're into the R3s, these people have 10-acre house lots, you know, or 5-acre. I mean, so to the structure, to the residential structure. So do we need to? So are we going 15 feet from the property line and 200 feet from any residential structure? Or is the word residence sufficient?
Residence is sufficient.
Okay. Excluding the residence belonging to the owner. Are we good with that? So all we're changing is the 100 feet to 15 feet.
Should we just strike, strike at least 100 feet from any property line, and,
Yeah,
because the
just,
state setbacks are gonna come into play. So, we wouldn't have to reference, I mean, we won't have
Right.
to say it
Rewrite
again.
them. Yeah.
So what would it read?
at least 200 feet from any residence.
Shall be.
Take out the 100 feet of any property line, take that out completely?
Right, shall be
Okay.
located at least 200 feet from the residence.
Okay. What about the 10 acres of land? Is that reasonable, or is that,
I think that's reasonable.
pardon?
I think that is reasonable.
You wouldn't let somebody do it on 8 acres of land? I guess I'm just trying to get an idea. 10 acres is pretty good size.
A lot of land.
It is. It is.
I don't see, then it starts depending on consumption for your septic and all that stuff, and drainage and so on and so forth, so
because I
then you start using up space.
Yeah, because that other one we were looking at was, they had to have 2 pretty good-sized fields.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so you got was it 15 or 20 lots he was gonna do? And
Yes, and he had to have.
Does he have 10 acres there?
He's almost pushing himself out of doing that by his capacity. He'll probably reach the limits of his capacity if he has it sited
I
properly.
don't know how big his property is, actually.
He's got those
He's got quite a bit of property.
Actually, maybe 10 acres is not that unreasonable considering all the ancillary stuff that has to
Just
go on
that
that.
driveway and the
Yeah.
other space.
I would leave 10 acres.
Okay. Moving on. Anything on number 2? Anything on number 3? I question why you couldn't have a for sale sign
Well-
on an RV, in an RV park.
Sure, why
You're getting traffic of people trying to buy it and to check it out.
what's wrong with that?
Well, and your buyers are the people around you, the other RV owners.
Yeah, I think I'd be more concerned about being registered than it would be,
I mean, when I saw the exhibited for sale, I thought, what's wrong with a for sale sign in the window of your RV?
yeah, I said the same thing.
What they're aiming at is using it as a sales lot.
Right.
Yeah.
That was how I interpreted
Yeah.
exhibited for sale.
If you stick a for sale by owner thing in the window
Yeah, that doesn't
of your
apply.
RV, no one's going to say anything.
Well, you don't, well, someone's going to pull this out or exhibited for sale.
No, I'm living in it. It's not under exhibit.
Yeah, it's shall be stored or exhibited.
That's,
I think this,
that refers to
no, I think you're
sale.
talking about, if I have an RV and I put one in my window while I'm camping, a for sale sign.
Right.
Versus,
That is what I'm
if I
talking.
talk with the owner and say, hey, can I park my RV there all summer long with a for sale sign? That's a different situation.
Yeah, but if the, well, it may be, but I still don't object to it, because if the camp owner is going to collect rent, or whatever the parking fee is, for that guy selling his RV, then whether it's sitting there for 3 days with him in it, or 300 days with him not living in it, he's occupying the space and he's paying rent.
Well, it'd be different if it
That's
was hooked
different.
up or if
Yeah.
it was just sitting there.
Right.
If it's hooked up, it's being camped in.
And maintained, and the area cleaned up around it.
My thought this is, if this is sitting in the parking lot when you first drive in or through the gate, and that there's an RV sitting there that says for sale, that's clearly not being used for camping.
Okay.
That's how I took it anyway.
If the water's hooked up and the sewer's hooked up, it's being camped in.
Right.
Okay, well, I'll back off on that one. Permanent or long-term dwellings or shelter devices are specifically prohibited. I'd like to strike that. I don't see why you can't have, especially when you say permanent or long-term dwellings. This guy has got cabins in his RV park. It's a permanent structure. I don't see a problem.
Yeah, but we don't even have an ordinance on cabins, so I don't know what historically made that pass even. I mean, I've not.
Well, regardless, but it's conceivable that you could have, I don't know, I'm just trying to be flexible and accommodating to many
Yeah, you got,
possibilities.
I see a problem with that too. I used to take my kids to KLA campgrounds, and they always had a structure in the middle, which was for showers and laundry and general store. You know,
Good point,
and recreation too, if it's raining.
yeah. So, I mean, is there a reason to keep that there? I mean, permanent or long-term dwellings or sheltered devices are specifically prohibited. So that means if you put a roof over the picnic table, that's not allowed, because you just created a shelter device.
I don't think that's what that means. I think that it means permanent or
Like a deck
fixtures
or,
over the pad that would protect your trailer or tent or whatever.
Well,
This isn't,
if that's what it means, then that's what it should say.
right.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I think that's what that probably means, because it would be nice to have something there to support your business, so you can sell laundries and
Yeah, you get a canteen.
soda and chips.
Build a canteen in the middle of the ground.
I think all those grounds have that.
And I think a roof over a picnic table should be allowed.
I don't
It was probably a campus.
I think they're probably applying to like, those 30, the quick built garages where somebody parked their car in and stuff like that. And that's how I take that, as far as like, a permanent or long-term shelter. Somebody's got an RV and then they have one of those little, pop-up garages. I don't see it as the way you were thinking of it, Phil.
I hadn't thought about the canvas garages. Does somebody want to put up a canvas garage? Do they need permission from the city? That's probably
Is that
just,
considered a permanent structure?
it's kind of like an above-ground pool. You can take it down whenever you want. So it wouldn't, so you could throw one of those up without ever visiting the city office for a building permit or anything like that. I see your point.
It should be rewritten though, because it's weird, and we all took it as something different when we read it.
If he's gonna have a concession stand there, I don't think anybody's gonna say no to that. I don't think that they would even interpret this to reflect on that. I think they're just looking at permanent structures being constructed on the pads.
Yeah, but when you say you don't think, if somebody comes to us and wants to build a park,
Yeah.
and the neighbor is opposed,
Yeah.
Okay, but we grant it because it's within the guidelines.
Right.
Okay, then, next thing you know, the park owner is putting up, a canteen, and the distraught, or the unhappy neighbor who didn't get his way is gonna be back in front of us saying, he's building a permanent structure. Shut him down.
Well, maybe we should put verbiage at the end of that to say it doesn't include, we'll say maintenance structures for the facility or whatever, or word it somehow that articulates it with regards to those RV pads themselves versus the...
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so in other words, it needs more clarification.
Yeah, we need more verbiage to define whether there's permanent and or long-term...
Because the permanent structures are being taken care of back here on health and safety. It's on the next page. That would be your shower houses and...
Right, and that should be an acceptable part of the trailer park or wherever. But this part here, I think, is what they're trying to say, is that they don't want structures built to store trailers and/or shelters to store trailers in the park. I think that's what that means.
Yeah.
When you read the whole intent of the whole paragraph.
I mean, I've seen people where they build like like a shelter, like going over a picnic table. I've seen those built over a camper before. So it's just, it's got 4 or 6 posts holding the roof structure over a camper. So,
Direct from the RV, direct from the UV.
Probably a pop-up camper.
nope, but why they ever did it, I don't know, but they do
There's
it.
someone in Presque Isle who has an RV that has an actual garage built for it. So, I mean, if you can build a garage with that height more, then,
Yeah, but you wouldn't put that at the RV camp.
no, I wouldn't even
No,
drive it.
but that's what they're saying. You won't have a garage in your backyard.
We should
Define
note
it.
that,
Yeah.
with regards to the pad or...
Clarify that a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so we done with number 3? Because I'd like to go back to number 2. Okay, skipped over number 2 here, something that sites shall be laid out on screen in such a manner that none are within view from public roads, navigable rivers, or existing residents.
I think that's totally unreasonable.
I don't see why, number one, you have an RV park next to the river.
Right.
Your campers want to see the river. You don't put up a wall between them and the river,
There's a great campsite over on the...
just so that the guy canoeing down the river can't see them. And the guy canoeing down the river, if he sees the campground, he'll say, oh, wow, I didn't know this was here. I got to bring my camper here now, I mean, so, and the same with the public roads. So what if you can see the campground from the public road? It's typically going to be an R3. It's not like you're, downtown Caribou.
I think there are state laws about that.
That's what I was going to say.
That's what we were trying to tell that guy.
I think that was state-related.
Yeah, that's a state regulation, that's not us, has nothing to do.
Well, I'd like to confirm
I
that.
think with the part from the road, not necessarily the part
Yeah.
from the river, but I think the part from
See
the road.
screening the road, but the river thing?
Right,
I mean, I think...
I'm in agreement with, the rivers, but I think we want to reference the state statute with regards to public roads and/or residences.
So, the residents, I understand, okay? Because that's the same thing as the 200 feet. You want, the neighbor deserves his privacy. But the river or the road, those are people just passing
I'll
by.
give you an example again. I go by, there's a particular RV site that's very popular on Eagle Lake on the east side. And they specifically have a high fence for visual screening between all the sites and the road. But once you're on site, it's wide open to the lake, as it should. Right.
Yeah, because it's the same way when you take 162 and go to Sinclair, right?
Sinclair's the same way.
So then you want to take out
Fence.
just the rivers and leave the road? That it's not visible from the road?
Yeah, you have to check the state law, see
Right.
what it says.
Yeah,
And it's a navigable river?
Yeah. I think we need to reference the state statute, but,
What were you saying?
Well, I mean, it's specific saying a navigable river. Is that something different than just a lake or a river? Is that something that's going to be more
Well, I think it should be any, whether it's...
in water?
whether it's any any body of water or running water. It could be a stream, you know, it may not be navigable, you know, I don't know if you can take a canoe down Caribou Stream.
I don't think that the word navigable applies to canoes and rowboats. I think it's talking about like the Penobscot River, the Kennebec River, and something like that, out where you actually have to navigate.
Well, we don't have such in Caribou.
Which will make it,
But
it may not apply.
that's why I think that need to reference the state statute with regards to that.
And that,
It's all, the state statute is already umbrella referenced above.
Right, but we ourselves need to find out what these things say, so
Well,
that
we-
we're not just
we don't
writing
wanna
the same
be-
thing that's in there, too.
If we're going to be more restrictive than the state statute, we want to know it.
Right.
I don't see anything in the
You're looking at the state
rules,
statute?
and rules for the campgrounds that has any buffers from roadways.
Austin, are you going to get Jim an iPad?
I can get my own.
I have one. So,
See?
it's not an iPad, but I have it. They're gonna-
Because that is
That's
very
online
handy.
usually.
That is very, very handy to have.
And he won't let me print anything anymore either way, so.
he gets paper.
It's him. Budget.
Listen,
Your budget won't allow paper for the printer?
I like paper.
Wow.
I'm kidding. But I do have that device that's being set up for the VPN tomorrow, so.
Okay.
Everything you got in front of you is printed, isn't it?
Yes, I printed it at my office.
I don't have a problem with that.
I printed my own.
I'm not gonna do that, it's too much ink.
I'll send out the links so everybody has those rules as well. So.
Okay, so obviously we're going to have to go back to this.
I think we should mark the campground area especially as something we need to revisit once we get everything else cleaned up.
Now, I'm going to go back up to above A, general. The campground or recreational park shall conform, blah, 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 blah. For purposes of this section, RV shall include, you know, and there's a list, and absent from the list is tents, which are discussed further on. Should tent be included in the list?
Tent is not an RV.
But this is campground and/or RV park bylaw.
Yeah, and so you have tents in
Right, because
campgrounds.
tents come in number 4 under
Well,
general.
this defines what an RV is, it doesn't exclude tents.
Right. Because tents are covered under number 4.
Oh, it's just, you're just defining this, RV shall include, oh, excuse me, forget it. Boy, my batting zero tonight.
And that is actually the same as the state rules.
Okay.
How we define it and they define it the same way.
Oh, no, but you see, now 5 is so contradictory to 3 that you couldn't believe it. Not 3, 2. 5 says that you're gonna have to have 100 feet of frontage along the river,
But you can't see it.
but you gotta hide it. That's ridiculous.
You're already at 5. Okay, we were at 2.
Then you
Went back to 2. Okay, number 4, density
I can't argue with that.
shall not exceed the standards below
Oh, here they are.
10 sites, 14 per acre. Non-shoreland, 14, shoreland, 8. Well, why the difference?
Shoreline zoning.
Shoreline zoning,
More pollution.
right.
Environmental protection.
More pollution from more campsites. 14 per
That may be
acre.
that may be where the restriction is coming from, as far as, maybe not the visibility, but the distance from the body of waters from the shoreline zoning stuff too.
High water, state requires 75 feet from the
Right.
high water mark, we require 100. Looking at the other one.
Okay, so you're into number 5?
Well,
Okay.
Austin's got a note at the bottom of number 4 with regards to cabins.
What about cabins that are becoming more popular for camping? Well, did we
we already do that those would be considered a permanent structure with regards to when we were looking at number 2, or number 3, correct?
Well, boy, you're getting pretty close to a motel if you've got permanent cabins.
Can we have something?
Well, a cabin and a motel are two different things.
Well, except that, again, if you travel around, you'll see places that are actually used and intended to be used as motels, but the bedrooms just happen to all be in separate little buildings.
Yeah, Bar Harbor has a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that we, again, try and group this into some transient accommodations thing. See what we can steal from other places and just pop it in there. Because I don't know, like I said, I don't know if anybody here knows, but how we passed the Caribou cabins. I mean, what ordinance was that even under? If we had never had anything in here on
That was
it.
BM before me.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you'd been around for a while.
I wasn't on any of the boards then, though, when that took place.
Yeah,
I even think
that's-
that
because of-
may have even been either just before or,
What's
I
the-
almost think it was just before Wentworth, too, to be truthful with you.
And not that I have anything against them either, but there's also the fact that when you take into consideration cabins like that, at some point in time, there might be a change of use to those small homes things. So that has to be taken into consideration, I think, sometimes with
And I-
cabins.
So the state, on their definitions here, they define a campground as a tent and recreational vehicle park or wilderness recreational park. So cabin probably wouldn't fall into a campground definition,
Right.
so. But the comments in there, so it, because at some point we need to address
You
that
gotta be careful, yeah.
in our ordinance.
So are we at number 5? 100 feet from the, you say the city's, now, you mentioned 75 from the high water line. Now, the high water line around here typically is in April or May, when everything is melting. That, well, I guess it depends. That could make a difference of more than 25 feet, depending on the body of water. I mean, Caribou Stream runs behind my house, and it's typically about 10 feet wide, and in the spring, it's almost 100 feet wide. It's huge. So the high water mark would be the springtime flow. To go another 100 feet beyond that, I guess I'm saying if the state only requires 75, I'd be in favor of changing our 100 to 75. Considering that it's referencing the high water line, not the usual water line.
It says normal high water.
That's what I was just gonna say, it says normal.
Normal high water, which would not, I wouldn't think that would reference your flood
Right.
conditions.
No,
Oh. Okay. I should have stayed home tonight.
No, I asked that same thing, we did the stormwater thing, I asked that same thing.
Well, so do we want to leave it, okay, for the normal high water line? Do we still want to leave it 100 and be more restrictive than the 75 from the state? Or,
I think I'd cut it back to what the state just...
I'd say we could just take that out altogether because it's a state regulation.
Right.
okay, so we're going to eliminate number 5 entirely? Or just because,
That's all covered underneath the states, isn't it?
so we delete item 5?
I don't see where it requires a minimum frontage from the shore.
Top line, the minimum frontage of a tent site or RV
Sorry,
site.
I don't see
said
what
the
the
state.
state.
Oh, the state.
Right.
Oh, whoa.
Why would we require a minimum frontage
I don't know.
if the state doesn't require it? And they-
100 feet? That's a lot of space for one tent.
Right, they can otherwise conform with the density requirements that you've identified. Why would we add that as an
I
additional?
don't, I have no idea.
So let's take 5 out completely. Agreed?
Agreed.
You can always put it back if it has to.
No tent or RV site shall be located within a resource protections district or within a 100-year floodplain. Now, there's my stream behind my house. Okay, what is the resource protections district? That's something determined by the state. Who determines that?
No,
EPA?
we went over that 7 months ago.
Okay. All right. B, parking and circulation. Minimum of 50 feet between vehicles. 75 feet. Okay, you've got some comments down below. I was going to say, 50 and 75 seem to be,
I don't understand the difference there.
between vehicles and between the RV or tent and the right-of-way. If this is another thing that is covered in the state, then do we want to delete it? Or is there a reason to keep it there?
So the state discusses roads and streets, providing that it has to be safe and convenient. We have, the state doesn't specify how the roads have to be constructed, which we are doing in section 2.
Right.
Have we ever had an RV park in Caribou? I mean, you know, like before my time?
Yes.
We did?
Uncle.
Yeah.
This road construction,
That's way overboard.
if that is within the park, you'll never get a park built. Because I thought that would be the requirements for the street alongside the park. I mean, that is,
It appears that we're trying to provide them with an awful lot of site design guidance that we may not need to be providing them, and requiring them to be in compliance with all of this.
And measure their stones.
Yeah.
Can't be bigger than 4 inches. Is that length or height?
That's, having been involved in some road construction in previous positions, that I understand that verbiage, but again, it's providing a lot of very specific design direction to
Yeah.
the applicant that
Yeah.
may not be necessary, and if it's not required by the state, and
Right.
they're meeting other ingress and egress requirements by the state DOT or our own requirements for access to the public road. Yeah, I have a question about why we were doing
Well, it's gonna be
that.
a road or a driveway.
Yeah,
well, I don't think,
exactly.
If you build a road, you have to kind of sort of like build it to the construction standards of your municipality, because there is a potential that you may take over that road later on.
Oh, absolutely, if that's the
but
case.
this is a driveway, this is not a road.
But you would have those
This is not a
standards
subdivision.
somewhere else.
That's why
You
I'm
wouldn't have them
saying,
here, right,
if we call it a driveway,
right.
I thought I read somewheres about, okay, on the next, parking, parking areas, no, it's not the road. Parking areas may be grass reinforced with open concrete blocks. That would make it a decent driveway. Grass with open concrete blocks, submerged. But I don't think we need a foot of gravel and all of that jazz.
No.
So, going back to, we were talking item 1, of whether or not we needed item 1. Now we're questioning the need for item 2. Does the entire parking and circulation need to be addressed, or we just tell them you have to abide by what the state requirements are?
I don't see why we should be any more strict than the state.
Agreed.
Great. Especially with the onslaught of RV parks.
We're being inundated.
Right. It looks like, I mean, that one that was here must have been really bad.
That was that was before me.
This is language that was probably taken from Bangor or someplace like that. You know?
I'd say we strike the whole thing.
Take B, parking and circulation out.
constructed this way, trust me.
That's what I mean, it wasn't even really bad. So somebody
Because I
had
think that
to,
that was before
Are we
this.
okay with striking section B completely?
Yes.
Okay, no more B.
Do we want to continue on?
Good question. We're at health and safety. Is this a good place to break?
We've got this, the rest of this sheet and half of the next if we want to finish up campgrounds.
I say finish it.
Well, let's keep going anyway.
Number 6.
Try to,
Yeah, finish section
Try to-
27.
okay, well, we're gonna rehash a chunk of it next time, looking for some of the changes that we've asked for. Okay, health and safety.
Is that,
I think that's pretty basic.
well, I was going to say, is there statutes with the state?
I think
that
there
will
is, because
encompass
it
all that?
references it in number 2.
Yeah.
And then it just says, make sure you do this.
Number 2 there is, but for fire extinguishers, there's not.
Are there life,
Yeah.
are there life safety requirements for,
No, this is calling for extinguishers inside of service buildings if there are any. Doesn't even have to do with the RV.
Right, but the NRPA or whatever it is, Life Safety
Right.
101 code.
Right, so part 1, each tent has to do a picnic table and trash receptacle. Trash is addressed. Picnic table is not by the state, sorry.
So the state doesn't require a picnic table?
Correct.
They don't care if you eat or not.
Well, you can eat sitting around a campfire. You don't need to be at the table.
Yeah, and at an RV site, you could be bringing your own chairs or sitting at your table inside your RV, unless it's, one of
A
those other...
picnic table is not,
Sure as heck would like a picnic table if I'm at a tent site, though.
right, I was gonna say, it's not a huge expense, and it's gonna increase sales.
I don't see any problem with trash receptacle either.
No.
I think we can move that.
I think that is good.
So, we all set at one, leaving it as is, okay?
one as is?
Number 2, any changes to 2?
2 says you said it meets the state requirements, Austin?
Okay.
Yeah, we
Yep.
can just says in accordance with the
Well,
regulations.
we can leave it alone. 3? 3's fine as is?
That's what we were questioning with regards to
Yeah,
life
right.
safety.
Is it already,
Okay, we finished 3, then I got a question.
No, 24-hour emergency communication service shall be provided. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, there needs to be a phone available,
Yeah.
I guess.
At least for 911.
Well, but then, I was gonna say, I'm sure this was written before cell phones.
Cell phones.
But, I mean,
Some areas, I think it could.
Right.
right.
My preference would be to leave section 3 as is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right, okay, you had,
I had a question about,
what number?
I'm not sure what number. Is there any requirement in this thing about campgrounds and tenting places for places for the people who are tenting? Sanitary facilities for the people who are tenting?
Yes, state requires that.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
D, planning and review. Okay, we're going to page 11. I didn't see anything all the way through item 1 and 2.
Well, if we're going to strike the part with regards to parking and circulation, then E, under 1, which says access roads shall be laid out with loops to greatest extent practicable. I mean, we're getting into the definition of roads,
No, it's just layout, it's not defining what it's made out of.
but the definition thereof says access roads.
Where are you? Are you in 1B or 2B?
1D.
1D, oh, I heard B, excuse me.
Access driveways.
Right. Yeah. If we're going to eliminate the road aspect of it, we need to make sure we're
An access
consistent.
road is a different, it's its own thing, it's not a road.
But it still takes back into parking and circulation. You get into circulation.
Well, I don't know why we're telling the camp owner that he can't have dead-end roads, that he's got to have,
They're not.
they're allowed,
To the greatest extent possible.
to the greatest extent. Right.
Dead ends maybe around Suda.
I would keep it.
But do we want to change roads?
Well, the state statute,
You know what a road is.
or the state requirements reference road.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I think it's pretty clear.
under the state rules, you have to have roads, and this just says, because you have to have roads, you have to lay them out in a
Right.
certain way.
It doesn't say how they have to build them.
Right, but does that tie back into what we had in
I
Part
don't
B?
think so. I don't think so.
I would
Okay.
suggest maybe you consider changing one word, and that would be shall, change it to should. So, access roads should be laid out.
That's good.
Fair enough.
That gives them a little bit more leeway.
Good. Okay, number two. Number two, the soil erosion and sedimentation control plan is what killed the application from Caribou Cabins. He did not have a drainage plan, which we told him to go back and get. Are we okay with the way it is?
The only possible change I would say is, doesn't need to be approved by the county soil and water conservation district, because
Especially where I don't think that they even exist for Aroostook County anymore, do they?
they do again.
Oh,
They've come
Thanks
back.
for updating me. You look stupid, sorry, Phil.
I welcome the company.
How much help do you need?
I mean, that is one of those organizations that, in my time here, it's been here, it hasn't been here, now it's back again. So if we're looking for somebody to get something approved by them in a time when they don't
Exists.
exist,
Well, if they don't exist, is there a government body
Right,
that would? Is it the DEP?
Is there a statute that the state needs us to follow with regards to that?
You can find out, get back to you.
We just change the verbiage.
no, there's nothing that really. State doesn't really discuss erosion.
Because we're not experts in soil erosion and sedimentation control. And so if we just say that a plan needs to be submitted, we don't know if it's adequate or not.
But we can check it off, points A, B, C, and D, and if we see that the plan meets those, you know, it's pretty clear. We learn in grammar school how to avoid erosion by not doing things in straight lines.
I didn't learn that.
What can I tell you?
The river's 200 feet wide and you're placing the spring.
What grammar school did you go to?
It was a three-room,
City school.
it was a three-room schoolhouse in Hamlin. K through 6.
No, planting fields along contour lines and all that stuff, that's what this is about.
As part of any site design review, though, we do typically have to have soil erosion maps. I think it's worthwhile to keep it, but I think we should
Strike the county part of it.
Yeah, what I was asking is if the county soil people are not in existence, is there another government body that we can refer to give us guidance? And that's why I suggested the DEP.
I'm sure if we had questions, they could help us out.
Use the experts.
I always ask them.
Right.
Right.
And there's best management practices out there, so that would be hard. to
Okay,
find.
so we're striking County Soil and Water Conservation District.
Right.
So a sedimentation control plan shall be
That'll
submitted,
be submitted.
period. Okay, we're done campgrounds?
Mm-hmm.
Because disposal of solid waste,
That's a
we're getting,
new issue.
yeah, it is, and we're going back to this business of everything is alphabetical, which, you know, really doesn't make sense. Okay, well, are we interested in adjourning?
Certainly are.
Make a motion?
So moved.
Second. Seconded to adjourn. All in favor? Unanimous. Adjourned at 7:10.
Turn off the mic.
That mean it's supper time?
I think